Hey, happy start to the holiday season, sugar season as I like to call it. This is your navigational consultant, astrologer, numerology expert. I guess there's a lot of things I would be called. Jim Ventura here with another YouTube video that I wanted to share about noticing number combinations. We have situations where a lot of clients talking to me about this where they're seeing, 222 on the clock repeatedly or 1111 or 444, or even getting receipts for things that come to certain repeated number combinations, 143 or, there's all kinds of different combinations that people encounter. And, again, like our logical mind, of course, wants to kind of rationalize this, and our spiritual self usually has some kind of feeling that something is going on here. And more often than not, that is the case, that there's kind of deeper meaning when you see repeated number combinations. So I thought I would do a two-part video. This is going to be part one, explaining what the basic numbers themselves mean. That way you can kind of, if you're seeing like, again, the number 143, you'll understand the different combinations. And then in part two, I will talk about master numbers and seeing those. So first thing I would say before I get into the numbers themselves is, this is more common than people would think. A lot of theories as to why you might see number combinations. One being, it's your spirit guides, your higher self, your angels, whatever your terminology for that is, trying to tell you that everything's okay, you're on track, there may be changes on the horizon, or, that you're being protected and guided in some way. So a great key in unraveling what that's about is what do the numbers themselves mean? So, of course, in numerology, we see this with birth path numbers, the day that we're born, the number combinations that come through our name as well, too, house numbers, things like that. So, for most of us, you'll have repeated numbers that kind of follow you around. But again, what happens when you're seeing, notable numbers more often and, in multiple situations where it becomes a little bit uncanny? So, let's talk about just the basic meaning of the numbers. So, the number one is about being independent, assertive, original, imaginative, inventive, strong, unique. The number one is about being a leader and looking at those characteristics. Some negative qualities to the one can be that feeling of being a square peg in a round hole, or being, stubborn or obstinate. But in general rule of thumb, the one represents new beginnings, kind of fresh starts, and that originality. The number two is about relationships, partnerships, sensitivity. The energy around the number two is about being supportive, diplomatic, background, quiet, a good listener, unassuming, even a chameleon in a way. The energy of the two is able to absorb up emotions and energies and even practical patterns from other human beings. So that can be an interesting trigger or flag. Negatives to the two, could be being self-deprecating, be too in the background, not standing up for the self, being too concerned with what other people might think. But again, overall, two energies about relationship. The number three kind of expands, and we look at energy connected with optimism, creativity, being persuasive, gregarious, social, expressive. The number three is associated with expression and storytelling and communication at multiple levels. So there's an optimism to that and excitement that comes from communication and expression. The negatives to the three can be, insert foot mouth syndrome, saying too much, you know, gossiping, that those kind of things can be associated with the three sometimes in a negative sense. So number four, we move into the practical realm. Fours are about being practical, sensible, a builder, loyal, reliable, hardworking. The four is about, about building. stone by stone, kind of brick by brick. It's a work number. The wiring of the 4 is about accomplishing tasks and goals in a practical way. So it's a strong number of organization. And that's often, and perseverance also would be a strong keyword for the number 4. Negatives can be being stubborn or like, being the choo-choo train that gets stuck on the track, where you're loyal to fault, where you're staying on something because that's what you know and it may not be good for you anymore also. Sometimes we have to know how to break those patterns. The number 5 is associated with movement and change and adaptability. The energy is adventurous, impulsive, physical, persuasive, quick, energetic. The 5 is about taste, touch, smell, experience of the physical reality in this world, and getting excited about that, striving for things, travel, movement, and change. When we start seeing the number 5, it often means there's some type of change on the horizon. The negatives to this 5 can be being, like you're never satisfied. You're always searching, or being too tactile or disruptive. Sometimes the 5 energy can be explosive, which can be part of the process of change as well too. Inevitably good, but certainly not when things explode. It cannot feel that way. Number 6. The number 6 is about responsibility, caretaking, service, giving, home, family. Responsibility, the energy is often attached to traditional ways of doing things. Again, the service energy comes in strong for 6s. 6s often are caretakers, and value helping, guiding, caring, inspiring others often in tangible ways. So the negative to the 6 can be like, being more comfortable in the giver role, giving too much and having trouble receiving, or sometimes getting too pulled into kind of trying to heal and help the wounded. That can be a good thing. So like if you're paid for it, obviously, or there's reward in it. But sometimes we can look at being overly responsible and sponges, kind of taking taking advantage of that energy, so to speak, as well. The number 7. Now we kind of come to kind of a somewhat spiritual number. The energy attached to number 7 is about being refined, intellectual, cautious, analytical, sometimes even secretive or spiritual. The 7 is about refining. It's about becoming particularly good at something, and carving away what works and what does not work. It's a very analytical number, but can also be kind of a spiritual one. It's about, like I said, knowing what you want and what you don't want, and fine-tuning that. Fine-tuning would be a good word. Now, the negatives to 7 can be being distant, overly analytical, sometimes arrogant when you're very knowledgeable. Number 8 is associated with power and mastery. People with 8 numbers or 8 energy around them are often efficient and confident and reliable, and again want to master things to do them well. Often the philosophy of the 8 is do it well or not at all. It's kind of like a higher octave of the 4. It's even more about accomplishing goals. So the 8 has a lot to do with mastering and power. So it is about coming at your own power and using it. So of course the negatives to the 8 can be being controlling, I always jokingly say the 8 sometimes is like that energy of off with your heads or let me do it myself so it gets done correctly. Every true 8 has uttered those words, and you're probably not wrong. It's just that people sometimes then take advantage of that, and then you feel put upon in that way, or having too loud an internal voice of criticism. Some criticism good, too much can tip. The 8 is a tangible number about dealing with the practical world. And the number 9 is like the number of the humanitarian, the dreamer, being generous, sensitive, universal, evolved, empathic, understanding how other people feel. One issue that can come up with 9s is that understanding that kindness, that empathy is a beautiful characteristic, but sometimes it can create an endless search. And also a little drama can be one of the negatives to the 9, and also boundaries. The 9 can feel other people's emotions and energies, and sometimes, again, people will, tread on that in a way. Friends and family are a bit of a collection of stray cats and dogs. You know, there's good in that, and there's sometimes that could be a little bit of a test if people are drawing too much from you because of your kindness. So those are a couple of key things to the basic numbers themselves. The next time I'm going to go into the master numbers, which are very significant as well, kind of higher octaves of the base numbers, and often have packed messages to them as well. But just so you know what some of those basics are, these are kind of key in understanding why certain numbers may follow you around or why you're seeing them, what the messages might be in terms of the energy of the numbers. And again, we'll go into more about this in part 2 in about a month from now when I do another video. So you can catch me, subscribe, obviously, to get a link when my new videos come out. It's about once a month. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook as well. I do completely different stuff on Instagram, Facebook, as well as my radio show on Blog Talk Radio, Snake Oil Radio. And information about services can be found at jimventura.com for personal sessions and books and classes and all that good stuff. So check that out, and feel free to pass on my videos to anyone who might be of interest, and definitely subscribe so you can stay in the loop, okay? Till next time, cheers.